do you believe that a strong common European approach on AI, semantics and interoperability for public sectors in the EU is necessary? So say red for nice to have and green for need to have. And that is almost a unanimous vote, so I think there is a very wide consensus in this audience that indeed we need and we can take benefit from a joint, common, strong European approach. Glad to see that consensus in this room, indeed. Now, let's start our closing plenary session with a high-level panel on the technical, the policy and the societal implications of new emerging trends in artificial intelligence and interoperability. And we'd like to look at those challenges through the lens of the upcoming policy acts and also under the skillful leadership of Margarida Ribeiro. At DG Digit, Margarida led the design of the European Commission's digital strategy and leads the digital strategy sector in the corporate digital transformation unit. Now, on top of those responsibilities, I now invite her to also lead the high-level panel on upcoming challenges. So may you warmly welcome our moderator for this session, Margarida Ribeiro.
And a warm welcome as well for the 5 panelists that we have ahead that will help us wrap up the day and actually go a bit beyond the conclusions of the whole day, but reflecting on how can we do it better and do it together. So I have the pleasure also to invite Veronica Gaffe, who is DG for Digit in the European Commission, and actually we try to do this a bit differently because the actual bios of the experts and panelists that we have are a page long or even more. So we also wanted to have a bit of an insight about the person itself. We have discussed a bit the challenges of AI and how to humanize this new wave of public digital services, and this is also a way. So we will introduce each of the panelists with a very specific detail from the person. In this case, I have a difficult job because it's my boss. So actually, one of the things that we thought that we could bring was her resilience, because she has been a resilient woman in the 20 years of service in the Commission, also cycling several kilometers to her high school, and also hearing a lot of loud people in the office currently, including me, in difficult meetings. So I welcome Veronica Gaffe, DG of Digit, European Commission. Welcome, Veronica. Well, secondly, I'm also in a very difficult position because I would like to welcome Pedro Tavares, who is currently in a position of Secretary of State of Justice in Portugal, so leading a lot of the digital transformation in that sector. And we were good colleagues in interministerial task force, but I wanted to also highlight one particular fact from Pedro's experience, is that before even we had UX labs, 25 years ago, Pedro was already launching a lab in my office, in a huge, large open space that we had in the Portuguese Interministerial Task Force. Pedro, welcome to stage. It's a pleasure to have you with us as well. Well, Edward also doesn't need a lot of presentation. He started as a coder. Edward Mititello is now the Secretary of State of Research, Innovation and Digitization in Romania. And one of the characteristics I wouldn't go there, but besides being an excellent coder, and it was not him that told me that, we wanted to dig into a very specific fact from his infancy. The fact that he is an explorer and he wants to bring technology to the national context also derives from the fact that when he was a child, he had a regular visit to hospital because he had these bike stunts that he was. So actually, it is very good to have human people leading these digital sectors, because this is what we want to bring, is that digital serves people. Pedro, Edward, welcome to stage. And too many. Well, Sim Sikut doesn't need any presentation, so I think I will cut a bit the... So Sim, he was already James Bond this morning, right? So everyone is reminded of that. But he has a strong partnership not only with his partners and former CIOs, etc., but also at home with his wife. I heard from, I cannot reveal the sources, that you have 3 kids, 3 girls, and that you have an ongoing challenge of dominating their hair, right? This is a very practical challenge. Let's see if we can use AI to support this in the long term. Thank you, Sim. Join us, please, in stage. Well, with Frank Lehman, I have to say that when we met, we were very different. But Frank has a difficult task. He's also replacing Jack, who leads BOSA, Simplification DG in Belgium. He heads the International Affairs Office in this DG for Simplification for many years. You have been critical in a lot of changes at national level, I was told. But also, he has also another challenge, which is every year, when he goes on a mission to find out what countries are doing to launch and unleash their digital transformation, you also look for strange wines all over the place. So you have visited more than 90 countries, and you have found very strange wines. So if a person can continue like that after 30 years in service, come on, this deserves an applause. Welcome, Frank. So we have a full house. We were gender balanced, but in essence, we will have the presence of Carme Artigas, the Secretary of State of Digitization of Spain, that will join us later. But we wanted to start the closing panel with also a reflection on which type of future are we designing here? Which type of services are still not needed, that will be needed, and how technology needs to keep up the pace with these needs, the citizens' needs. So, in essence, we will start the panel with a very short introduction from each of the panelists on how they saw the day, how they wrap up the day, but also on how they will reflect on how Europe can actually drive this forward. So, Veronica, you have this role of leading as a CIO of the European Commission. You have a role not only on launching and negotiating the Interoperability Act, a number of discussions on AI are taking place not only inside the Commission, but also outside the Commission. And how did you see, in the course of the day, how these topics and the digital-ready policy making paving its way towards, we've heard a lot of countries discussing these topics. How can we, together, do more? And how did you see these challenges and reflections? What are the takeaways that you would take from the day?
Okay, thank you, Margarita. That's challenging to summarize all of that in a couple of minutes. But first of all, I want to say how impressed I am at the high-level representation from member states and also the energy that has been in the room throughout the day. And I think this is very positive, and this is something that we have to hold on to and build on into the future. But it's clear, we know from the recent reports, that the digital maturity is very different across the different member states, and that for me is a big challenge, that we need to make sure that we don't leave any member state behind. Otherwise we won't meet the challenges of the digital decade targets, and we won't meet the challenges of the digital single market. I mean, if I can say a little bit about my experience, I equally have long experience in public service, and I started work many years ago in the Irish administration. And I have seen throughout my career how digital transformation of government can bring numerous benefits. And let me confess, when I started to work in the Ministry for Labour many years ago, we had no computers at all. But in the early 1990s, we were working to bring European Social Fund resources into Ireland at a time when Ireland had high unemployment, and we were bringing in as much money as we could to invest in training and education and training for the unemployed. So when we had the opportunity, the powers that be said, it's priority that the European Social Fund division gets the computers and starts digitalising. And this was a long time ago, this is 30 years ago, but it reminds me of where we are now with the Recovery and Resilience Fund and the opportunities presented by the Recovery and Resilience Fund to make a step change. Because I reflect in the last 30 years, we've come so far in digitalisation. But as I said this morning, I think now we're at a point in time we need to do a step change. I'm pretty confident that the Interoperable Europe Act, I still find it hard to say that word after 18 months, will help easier data collection, monitoring, reporting, and user-friendly, simple access to public services across borders. I was really impressed to hear about so many concrete initiatives and projects yesterday and today, making Europe's public administration truly data-driven and fit for the digital age. Using AI for mapping legislation, helping to connect data spaces through semantic operability. The possibilities are infinite. My concern, however, is that we must all progress together, maybe not at the same speed, but sharing experiences and good practices and learning from each other. So, while AI can help enhance efficiency, accelerate decision-making process, improve user experience, one of the biggest challenges we have as public administrations is to ensure that we have ethical, human-centric and responsible use of AI. And that's a big challenge for us moving forward. And I take away that for us in the Commission, we have to also contribute to that effort. And the forthcoming communication on AI at the Commission will put in place an appropriate risk-based approach, I hope. So what can we do? Interoperable Europe Act. We will strengthen collaboration through the structured governance mechanism of the Interoperable Europe Act with the Member States and the Commission. We will jointly publish the annual strategic roadmap, the Interoperable Europe Agenda, and the Act will help to prioritise interoperability and open standards in the public domain. And in this way, I hope, put some order on all the experimentation and innovation that is taking place across Europe. But at the same time, we need to foster innovation and create space for experimentation. And the last point I'd like to make is we really need to redouble our efforts, I think, to improve civil servants' digital literacy and skills. If I recall 18 months ago when I came to Digit, not having worked in the digital domain, I didn't know what language people were talking. And the first message I gave to my colleagues was, I said, you need to talk to me in language I can understand. And I think that's a challenge for us all in the digital, more in the technical engineering side, to make sure we can talk together with the policy people. And what I picked up from today and last night is that this conference really did start to do that, to put the policy people and the technology people together. So those are my takeaways. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. And indeed, indeed, the Commission is doing a lot, but it cannot do anything alone, indeed. So there's a lot of intergovernmental discussions taking place in these matters. And this is also one of the plateaus that we can use to connect the dots between policymakers and the technicians and the developers. Pedro, You have unleashed a number of discussions at government level on how to modernize justice. You have tested a number of pilots. You have put in place the use of ChatGPT to a number of services. Can you maybe give us a bit of your insight of what can we do together a bit strongly in Europe that can also reinforce and capitalize on the national experiences at the sectorial level? That would be a good takeaway from us.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the invitation for this excellent day and all this panel. So I would say that having this national experience on acquiring a lot of legacy, and we have to talk about legacy, because when we start, and I first heard a question in the morning for Denmark, what's left to do? When we start early, it's good, because obviously you start with a lot of things. You start modernizing public services, you start modernizing justice. At the same time, you have this major challenge, which is all the technology that you've built, and then you need to evolve because obviously it needs to be fit for purpose. You need to make sure that citizens can access better to justice. You need to make sure that companies are more obviously competitive on a national and international level. So you need to build on combining these legacy systems with the new ones and making sure that this is the right fit. So if you do that, and if we have to do that, the first thing is, and when we think of that, we think to reimagine completely the idea that we provide the services based on having standards. It is essential having standards on a national level on authentication, but authentication is also European standard. This is something, the ID is something that is obviously a standard for that. Interoperability, I would say, it is one of the key messages that is essential. We cannot do AI, we cannot do better services if we don't have interoperability, because if you believe in the idea of the only ones, if you believe the idea of better efficiency, etc., we need to invest a lot on interoperability. The problem is sometimes the standards. When we talk about, for instance, the Interoperability Act, we need to talk also in advance of that, because regulation take time, and we are developing all these systems right now. So like we are at, for instance, with the AI Act, if we don't talk together, if you don't learn from each other, if you don't work learning from our good examples, but also for our mistakes, we will build these systems not obviously according to the standards and the ideas and values that you have in Europe. So I would put the first thing, and the first idea was we need to develop these systems based on interoperability. At the second time, we need to do it in advance, building these systems, because otherwise what will happen is after the AI Act or the Interoperability Act, etc., we would have to redesign all these systems, reprogram all these systems. That's why when we develop right now, we need to work together ahead of that. It's not just regulation, it's also good practices, it's also working together, it's also management, it's also skills, and skills is very important. I would say it's one of the key messages that is important for us, because we don't speak all the same language. So we need to invest a lot in skills in public administrators. So in projects that we did right now that we're doing, we're trying to develop and using technology as obviously an instrument, not as a goal. We're using technology for once, and AI specifically, using that for more efficiency, automating things, making sure that we can allocate the right resources for added value, like you all are, certainly. At the same time, for instance, in courts, making sure that we have the right information easy to understand, easy to find for the judge to find relevant information, relevant cases, etc. But when we build these kind of algorithms, we need to make sure that bias is not a problem. So, for instance, in justice, this is for us a major, major problem. That's why we need to work together on that. with obviously the Commission, using the CEPEJ, etc., all the areas, the institutions that can help us building all these developments ahead of the regulation, so we won't build anything that we shouldn't. And the second part is adding value to citizens and making sure that citizens can also add values. I have just a small video we launched last February based on the generative AI system with the large language models, a system that can bring information instantly and clearly about for instance, divorce and marriage, and giving information on divorce and marriage. Right now, what we're doing is going a bit further on that. What if, and this is just a question, what if we could use and combine all the information together, open data, information, to resolve a really clear problem that people have. Sometimes they don't know where to go, if they should go to a physical counter, to an online counter. So what we're building is a system that uses and combines information. For instance, when they want to get marriage, initiate a marriage, they can just search. The information can give them online information, or if they can go to the counter, having information on if there is some kind of traffic there, if there is a strike, if there are less people on a specific counter, go to another counter, etc. So it's a perspective, it's a deductive system that can provide information that is useful for people, because in the end, impact is something that is essential for us to measure and make sure that these systems will add real and clear value for the citizens and obviously companies.
Thank you, Pedro. So, well, I think I need to stand. So, yes, we have been building this culture of early involvement of the digital aspects in policy making, and we heard a lot of there were 2 sessions on that matter. That is a very good way of bringing this up as well. And the link with the citizens, how to accompany the citizens in all the life events that they have in the best way possible. But we also want to hear, Edward, on how have you explored the other way around? How do you want to listen to citizens using technology and to listen to citizens through your advisor? Does that mean with EON that we saw earlier today and some have experimented with, does that mean that all the advisors that are in the room will be out of job soon? So this is something that we wanted to see. How is Romania dealing with interoperability issues, data quality, because it's another element that was already brought up in the morning, and also how can we prepare the services that citizens will need in the future using AI?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's hard for me to speak after Veronica and Pedro. Actually, I will tell you a little secret. I'm not a good speaker. I'm a technical person. For me, this part of speaking and finding the right words, it's hard work. Firstly, I will say thank you very much for the invitation to be part of SEMIC. You choose 2 very important topics, the artificial intelligence and interoperability part. And I will start with the theoretical part. I studied artificial intelligence in my, how I like to say, my previous life before public administration. And one important thing was, for artificial intelligence, you need data. You need a source of data sets of data, and also we need processing power. And for these data sets, the solution is interoperability. We need to open our systems, creating APIs, and these data sets from information system can be a good source of the data for artificial intelligence. The second part of artificial intelligence, my teacher, when he tried to learn me about decisional tree, he used an example. To think about a public servant in front of the desk asking me questions. You need to change your ID. Okay, do you have this? Do you have this? Okay, that's the decisional tree. A lot of questions and answers. And to go in the practical part, I need to say a secret. for this practical part, which we found in Romania, the secret is collaboration between public and private sector. That's the key. Applying the technical part of multi-threading. Let's think having, I don't know, 100 startups working for the government as multi-threading, finding new ideas, innovative ideas, and having technological transfer to government. Because I'm State Secretary in Research, Innovation and Digitalization, and in the research part we are facing a lot of work on technological transfer. And having this collaboration between public and private sector is the key. Is the key for innovation, is the key to bring the know-how from the private sector, from startups, in the public administration. And it's the only way to improve our systems. And in the practical way, my colleagues from National Authority for Digitalization have a very good project, the National Catalog for Public Services. This project is following the concept of SEMIC, and they created this catalog. They did a lot of work of collecting the data. It was a hard work, and I want to thank them for this work. And also we have another project from the private sector, from a startup, ION, which you said, a project we did together with them, a public advisor based on artificial intelligence, the Prime Minister advisor. We have an official launch in March, which was the bridge between us, the policymakers, and citizens. This artificial intelligence advisor has the main purpose to bring citizens' idea to us, asking a lot of questions to citizens. We bring Ion also on the metro station. Last week we take Ion from Bucharest, and I went with him in villages, and there citizens have some talks with Ion and have a lot of answers to Ion, and Ion is bringing these answers to us in the dashboard, and we can create policies. How we discovered these needs was going to the local authorities, where there are a lot of work to do, and we had a project going. I was with my team in local villages and asking them about digital transformation. It was a hard work for us, but we tried to help them. Having these two projects created an idea how can be to connect national catalog of public services with ION,
with the needs,
and creating a public servant, a virtual public servant with answers, this time with answers for citizens, not questions. And we, using APIs, creating APIs for national public services catalog, connecting the APIs to data sets for ION, and we have now a proof of concept, a demo of ION being a public servant. From Prime Minister advisor to the public servant, it's a nice professional way. And now we have, I think I have also a video, but maybe, I don't know if between... Yeah.
Înainte de a vă elibera permisul de conducere, autoritățile trebuie să verifice dacă, din punct de vedere medical, sunteți apt să conduceți. De asemenea, trebuie să reușiți atât examenul practic, cât și pe cel teoretic.
Ion, I lost my ID. How can I get a new one?
Within 24 hours, you need to go to the police department associated with your address and fill in a statement confirming that the document has been lost. You will have approximately 15 days to request a new identification document.
Ion, ¿cómo cambio mi pasaporte?
Para renovar tu pasaporte debes seguir los siguientes pasos: verificar la fecha de vencimiento, reunir los documentos necesarios, completar el formulario de solicitud, obtener fotos para el pasaporte, efectuar el pago de las tarifas y solicitar una cita previa.
Yeah, thank you. My Spanish is not good. I tried my best. And I will finish my speech saying that I'm inviting you to test Ion. Is on the expo part. It's not perfect. It's the first iteration. We'll have an official launch in short time, I hope. And any feedback, it's awesome for us. Thank you.
Well, the fact that Jon is a mirror also says a lot about digital transformation, because yes, it's about us. It's about the citizen in the end. It's about your life cycle and your interaction with government, but also your life. So thank you, Edward, for sharing with us your experience. In the light of the day, you were hopping on and off all the sessions. We saw you. Chatting with different speakers. We wanted you to be a kind of an honest broker here. We have a lot of national experiences. You are an expert, which has been a long time with us discussing the digital nations and how the CIOs can push the boundaries of Europe to lead. What were your key takeaways for the day, and how is SEMIC evolving? Because you see it year after year, your work with us. Share with us your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, as I said this morning, it's always good to be back here and really, like, well, you know, you use the word fan club, right? I think it's beyond that. Just like Veronica said, I mean, the crowd here feels quite a bit different in a good way than, you know, perhaps what it used to be. And I think that's the right direction as well. Look, I always have a very simple philosophy when it comes to events like this. If you have one idea to take home with that you actually would like to, or even better, are going to try out, you're on the winning side. So I think that's the sort of math all of us can do in the head. Did you get something you can take home with and actually try out tomorrow? And, you know, you also have the context from this event, you know, in terms of if you want to copy a bit of code or borrow the mirror or whatever like that. To me, what was interesting through the day, obviously, yes, there's quite a few of those sort of moments, right? But that's the value of SEMIC and the work, you know, Commission is doing as well to bring us together to share these sort of experiences. Like, at the end of the day, I was always amazed, and that's also self-critique, in a sense of how little we actually think about if someone else has tried it out. In my office in Estonia, at some point, we had to make a conscious point where whoever came up with an idea, in a sense of, we should do this, or we should do that, then it was my job as a CIO to ask the first question, has somebody else done it already? We had to make this conscious and actually, you know, be on the lookout for that. And so if we don't ask those questions, then events like this are good because they offer like a backup route. You're forced to look at what others are doing, in a way. What is my takeaway really from the day is perhaps not a new thing, but like a reaffirmation or reconfirmation of a few things. First of all, clearly, look, we are all converted here. Well, as I had an easy job this morning to preach to the converted crowd, right? I think clearly what is an interesting thing is to say that, but where are the skeptics? And how do we get to them? These are not the policymakers that Veronica is after necessarily, right? These are really to say, okay, but there's a different crowd who believes complete different things and would have more red cards up than the green ones, right? So how do we get to them is possibly not a question for us together, even at the whole of European level first, but even within our communities, all the way down to the villages, for example, right? I mean, that's the sort of, these are the folks we should be talking to, and not about details of semantics, mind you, but just really what is at stake here, what is the services we try to build for them and with them. Second sort of reconfirmation is that clearly a lot of stuff is happening. Europe is booming in that sense. Even more than, you know, I would say that it was like a few years ago before I retired. I've spent a lot of my time now in Africa, Latin America, other places like that. Europe is ahead in this game, basically, because of all the things we're doing in our countries. But the challenge for us really is what I try to come up with in the morning, to say, hey, we have to start working for interoperability of these things. Interoperability of our AI solutions, and so forth and so forth. So if you don't do that, we are underserving our citizens. But secondly, we are missing out this sort of great sort of, let's say, advancement opportunity that we have compared to some what other regions are at, other countries are possibly at. So I'm not a believer in the race to the bottom, sort of, but in the end, it's a competitive world. And secondly, even if we don't believe in competition necessarily, who gets to define things that work in this space globally, others will adhere to. We've seen this with ADAS. I see this with clients through Africa, for example, who look up to things like ADAS and want to do the same sort of frameworks. Perhaps we can do the same thing in interoperability space. And my third thing, sort of confirmation, is still perhaps a bit of negative note where we still are stuck at. We have lots of good ideas, We had lots of good pilots, but not enough scaling. The challenge for us is to get more done with public and private partnership, for example, but fundamentally get more done, more doing. And I think this will also go to the heart of the new Interoperability Act, for example, as well, to say that this will offer more reasons and obligation to come together, to reach agreements and get things moving in practice. But if we use them just to talk things over and over again, things are not going to happen. We need more doing than talking. That was always my impatience even in my own government, with my own self as well, to say, hey, can we get more action done? And nobody has the answers in terms of, for example, how do you really use AI for interoperability the best? Or how do you do interoperability of AI? Yeah, we have to talk about that. We have to agree, we have to have a bit of semantic talk, but we need to be doing and trying more. Then we get those answers. Only we see through what works, we will have those answers and solutions. Stay ahead of the game globally and have a better future for the citizens.
Thank you, Sim. Some thoughts on scaling up, on doing more together, and also this sectorial approach that you mentioned, that we sometimes break, we need to break the silos much more, and interoperability is a backbone for that, a natural backbone for that. So yes, it's a word that is used over and over again, but implementing it takes a step back and putting forward a framework that works for all the sectors. That's for sure, for a digital nation to be built from scratch or rebuilt from scratch. Thank you, Sim. Frank, you have been working in simplification for many years. Belgium will take the next presidency and with a lot of the challenges ahead. Of course, there are a lot of digital packages that will still be unleashed until then, so we still have to wait. But we wanted to know a bit of your reflection through the day, since you've also participated in the CIO network and all the discussions that took place on the digital ready policy making. What are you doing at national level that can also then build the case for scaling up some initiatives at European level, for instance? Thank you, Frank, for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let me start by using the two words that are key of today, which is data is key and interoperability is key. And when preparing this panel session, I tried to go back to 22 years ago when we created the ICT ministry in Belgium. Actually, I think I can say that from day one, we've been trying to focus on the availability of data and on the interoperability of them. We were all building a country-wide back office infrastructure, interconnecting all the ministries, but basically what were we doing? We were making sure that every civil servant could have access to those data wherever they are, that my industry, whenever they are allowed to, could get access to these authentic sources, and that my citizen could do the same thing. Interoperability is key there because not only within public sector, we interconnect with each other, but also outside, and then later on at European level. I think for 22 years we've been doing that. What did change? Well, there were new technologies coming up, and they were coming up at a faster and faster pace. So that was our challenge. We had to, well, understand the technology, digest it, see whether that technology could be somewhere an enhancer of possible services within our public sector, and then do some piloting and hopefully some implementation. The speed at which this is happening is faster and faster, and the time to market shorter and shorter. So the challenge is on us. Being a small country, for us it's a no-brainer that all these things, we need to do that together. Yeah, no more each country doing its own interoperability piloting. We probably do the same kind of things, each in our corner. With regards to AI, yes, we've been very active in AI. We created a few years ago AI for Belgium, which basically it's starting by creating a community first at national scale, but then very soon by sector.
bring people together, stakeholders together. Give them a platform, give them tools so that they can build whatever needs to be built, exploiting AI in the best possible way. I think our role is there to be a facilitator, to enable them to build whatever they think is useful. I could use the word co-creation there. Yeah. If you put all the stakeholders around one table, let them do. Yeah, they know best. It's not up to us to impose things. So we very much go the co-creation way. We made an AI strategic plan, and I think it was your colleague who already said this morning that she already had done a new plan. Well, last September we also came up with a new national AI convergence plan. Technology is forcing us to be agile and to constantly fine-tune, update, and be close on the ball. I think it was Veronica who mentioned the word ethics and being responsible with the usage of those data, with or without AI. We also think that's a very important theme to discuss. We will organize a dedicated conference actually during our presidency on how to be as responsible as possible in the world of AI. So I invite you to Ghent in February. You will get information soon on that. Interoperability needs to be an enabler and not a blocking factor, a barrier. That goes without saying. So just to keep it short, let me just mention one more event. We will organize the SEMIC conference next year. If I just can take 5 seconds to do some promotion.
Go ahead.
I can give you already the date. It's going to be probably when hopefully the weather is the best in Belgium, which is the last week of our presidency on the 27th in Brussels. And I've had several questions from the audience already here about what kind of topic you're going to use. We are not out of it yet, but there is one little topic that is in our mind turning around, which is the discussion on, I think the borders between what public sector and industry is doing is getting more and more blur. And I think it's worth to have a little discussion on that blurry border. So let's hope we can keep that until June next year.
Frank, thank you. So we now have a standing invitation for the 27th of June under the Belgian presidency. And thank you, Frank, for this dialectics between what the public sector is doing and what the private can also bridge and do together. So it's about moving fast. It's a fast-forward legislative process that we have. It's about involving early on all the digital matters so that we can create the backbone that is needed to proceed cross-sectoral. So we all know that there are some difficult tasks, but we have the appropriate channels to have the policymakers and the developers working together on that. So my last plea to the panel before I introduce Karma Artigas would be, we said exactly what we need to do together. We have a lot of homework in the different channels and communities of practice that we participate in. But I wanted you to bring to the stage an idea on how can we do more together. So a simple idea that can touch upon your previous recitation of what you heard today. And I would start as the first that wants to take the floor. So, Veronica, go ahead.
I'll be very, very short. I think what I take away is within the Commission, we really need to do the digital transformation, not only of our own DG, but across the entire Commission. And Margarida knows that better than me because she wrote the strategy. And this is about creating that digital culture and moving towards real digital-ready policy making, which I hope will mean that the Commission will put forward proposals in the future which are all consistent and coherent with each other. And my other point is we have to work together. We have to work with you the member states, and you the member states have to work with the subnational levels. And then I think it's interesting what Frank has said, we need to also start working more and more with industry. So that's my ideas.
Thank you, Veronica. We will take note of all these and put them together, because this can be a good start for the SEMIC of 2024, right? Any one of you, go ahead. So,
Okay.
Pedro, very organized.
The previous order. Okay, so I would put working on this together and going and completing the idea of putting this together. I would also talk about, and I think the idea that also every member country is not an island, so we need to work as all, but also not as an island, also working with the private community, with startups, with academia. I think that the GovTech ecosystem has a lot of possibilities and capabilities to work. Let me just tell a small story, and I was also sharing with a colleague of us from Ukraine. We had, like last year, a challenge on industrial property, and we invited companies, startups, to ask them to develop a concept on a specific area on industrial property. And one of the companies was from Ukraine, and they was the finalist for Ukraine. The problem here, and this is the second part, so it's very an area that we can do. The problem is we need to work together on attracting these companies, making sure that public services is really something that is interesting to develop, to create new business models, etc. So we need to make sure that happens, but also we need to work together too on the procurement part. Public administrations are not really very familiarized with the way startups work, and the contrary is also true. So we need to work together with them to make sure that we really attract the best to work with us. We cannot do change by ourselves. So we need to work also with the ecosystem that can help us solve small or large challenges that we have. So I think we could improve a lot if we could work together on that, building this ecosystem that starts with us, with all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. Scaling up is also part of the business, because if you involve in GovTech some startups, they will need to scale up their business as well. So working together will bring that case forward as a business case. Edward.
Yeah, I think the main word is collaboration, and I will start saying collaboration, as I presented already, collaboration between public and private sector, and we have this example of Ion, but we have more examples, and I have to say thank you Humans AI for their open, but one thing which Pedro said, the procurement part. We need to have easier procurement part and easier, let's say, by legislation for collaboration between public and private sector. The second part is collaboration between states. And I will tell a secret, a story. My first official visit was in Greece last year, and when I did my research, I used GNAP reports, fact sheets, and I think it's a must. It's a must for every Secretary of State on the digitalization part to read this, and there I found a good practice part. And when I was in Greece, I asked them from what I read about their solutions, and we started a collaboration on a small project of scanning receipts, app, and also collaboration between states. We have a strong collaboration with the Republic of Moldova, and there we found two ideas. One, hackathons. We have to bring technical architects of the future on the same table, creating microservices, small apps, and sharing these apps as open source solutions to the states. And the second one is using artificial intelligence also in the public services, removing some steps, having optimization process of public services using artificial intelligence, and can be a project for a technical project for the Europe, finding the right machine learning model for removing the papers from public services.
Thank you. Debureaucratizing. Sim, in a word, in a sentence.
In a sentence,
An idea.
how do you get more done? To do stuff faster.
Yes. So do stuff faster.
That doesn't mean breaking things. So just one more sentence on that. So whether from my own national experience or whether from the international things that we used to be involved in, basically getting out there, getting things moving, doing faster, you get more done at the end of the month, year, and so forth.
And you think that the current channels that we have in the EU to bring member states together are the prominent for that, right?
Well, I think this is also where, good colleagues who were Digit back in the day, remember that, we were always putting forward ideas how to make also in that sense support or available. I don't mean just financial, in the sense that, faster churn from idea to an actual experimentation can happen in a sense. And I think there's more to be done on that front. But fundamentally, it just comes down to, are we solution-oriented? So are we focusing on why not or how?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Todd. Frank?
I would like to say that our work is not finished with an AI Act that we all vote for and that we publish. I think if we want to have a full success of that, personally, I think we need to do two things. The ethical discussion, I'm not sure it's finished. I think we still need to do more discussions with the population, with the industry on ethical aspects. It's very sensitive and it's directly linked with the trust they will give us on that yes or no. And linked to that, I'm a strong believer in much more education and communication and dissemination of what we do. Tell about what we have built, tell what this legislation is about, what it can do for them, how it can protect them. I think we very much underestimate that kind of a task, so I would be very much in favor of doing a bigger effort in there.
Of reinforcing. So I would leave it at that. It's a very good line for the next speaker that we will have with us, bringing some insights on AI Act and also other legislative pieces that are still under negotiation under the presidents, the Spanish presidents of the Council. And I would ask you a warm welcome. We finished with an invitation for next year, a welcome for the closing panel, and see you next year then.